Michael Gove pledges 30,000 new social homes per year to tackle the housing crisis. In an exclusive interview with STV News, Mr. Gove has put a number on the amount of the social housing he wants built to tackle the UK's indefensible crisis. Also in the evening news, the EU rushes firefighters into Greece, while Italy hits a scorching 48.6 degrees. An intense heat wave has continued to grip the swaths of the Northern Hemisphere in what the World Meteorological Organisation has labelled a summer of extremes. And Prime Minister Rishi Sunak says plan is working as food and petrol prices drive down inflation. The drop from May to June was driven by the reduction in price of fuel, the Office for National Statistics has said.
This is STV News at 6:30 with Mark Austin and Mary Nightingale.
Good evening. Housing Secretary Michael Gove says the government will build at least 30,000 new social homes a year to tackle the housing crisis, and says it is indefensible working people have to live in vans, caravans and hotels. In an exclusive interview with STV News, it is the first time Mr. Gove has put a number of the amount of social housing he wants built, and said the government will step up its plans before the next general election. Housing charities, including Shelter, estimate 90,000 new social homes are needed each year in England to meet demand. There are more than 1 million households on social housing waiting lists. But watch Michael Gove's full interview with us, STV News investigations correspondent Daniel Hewitt, where he outlines the government's plans to tackle the UK housing crisis.
This has been long in the making, this legislation. Given the scale of this crisis, given the scale of the housing crisis, do you genuinely believe this change in the law can make a difference?
Yes, I think it will make a big difference, because we're putting those who are responsible for looking after tenants in social housing on notice. Ever since I arrived in this job, it's been clear to me that we need to do better by those who live in social housing. This bill marks a significant change. It gives the regulator real teeth. And of course, as we both know, the tragic death of Awab Ishaq has influenced the debate, and influenced the debate in what I believe is a powerful way for good in making sure that tenants have stronger rights and stronger protections.
Regular inspections, a proper regulator with genuine powers, more rights for tenants. This existed about 10 years ago, and it was the Conservative government, your Conservative government, that got rid of much of that protection, that regulation. Isn't this bill an admission of failure by your government?
I don't think so, but I think you definitely do learn while in government, and one of the things that we have learned is that the condition of social housing requires close, direct, focused attention, and it is certainly the case that we need to have the powers at the centre to be able to hold local authorities and housing associations more sharply and effectively to account.
Do you take any responsibility for it as a government?
Yes.
Found?
Oh, completely. I think it's a shared responsibility, but I don't think we can shuffle off responsibility for central government's role as well. So we do need to make sure that funding gets to the front line. We also need to make sure that there is an effective approach towards regulation. And I think that the fact there was a political consensus, both across parties and between the Commons and the Lords, about the need for this legislation shows that people believe that the government is doing the right thing.
You're addressing the conditions in social housing. What you haven't done is address the stock. There's just not enough social housing. You have said to me before, you accept more social housing is needed. So why aren't you building enough?
Well, we have an £11.5 billion programme, the Affordable Homes programme, and within that programme I have specifically insisted that we renegotiate it and that we have more money being spent explicitly on homes for social rent. Tens of thousands of new homes for social rent will be built as a direct result of the way in which we've reprofiled that spending.
Why should we believe you? Your record on building social homes is absolutely appalling. Last year, 7,500 social homes were built in England, yet you sold off nearly 25,000 under right to buy and demolish 3,000. So not only are we not building social homes, we're actually losing 20,000 a year.
Well, overall, we do have to build more homes of every kind, particularly social homes. You're absolutely right. But one of the things that I've already done is change the rules when it comes to right to buy. So now, 100% of the money that is made by a local authority from right to buy can go back into building new social homes.
You know, Mr. Gove, that takes years. You sell a social home in a week. It takes years to replace that, to build it. Surely the idea that you will replace like for like has been long debunked.
Well, it's only one of the tools that we have. £11.5 billion being spent on the Affordable Homes Programme. Local authorities able to keep the receipts and to reinvest. And also, in the days ahead, I'll be announcing more about what we're doing in order to increase housing numbers overall, and particularly to ensure that affordable housing and social housing is part of that mix.
You've been in this post for nearly 2 years now. When we first met, you said you wanted more social homes built. You have to accept, surely, that you haven't done that.
As you yourself say, it takes time when you're dealing with something as complicated as the housing market to get numbers up. And we're also operating...
So give us a number then. It's 7,500, that was the latest figure. What would you like to see that be?
Oh,
On the year after and the year after?
I'd like to see it increase significantly. I'd like to see 30,000 new social homes being built at least every year.
Shelter say 90,000 is needed a year.
Well, I think we need to, as you quite rightly say, step up. We have one more year before we have a general election. I want to see a significant increase in the run-up to that general election, and I want to see numbers increase after that. But of course, critically, as well as making sure that we have more social homes, we need to tackle the problems, which this bill does, with the existing stock, and we also need to have more homes for people to buy and more shared ownership properties as well.
We have working people right now living in caravans,
Yes.
in vans, hostels, working people who are going to work full-time or part-time, raising children, and then at night going back to a van or a hostel. How has that happened in a civilised society?
Well, across the Western world, we have a housing crisis. So whether it's in the Republic of Ireland, the United Kingdom, France, Germany, the Netherlands, it is the case that...
cold comfort for anyone listening to
Oh,
this.
no, of course.
Mr. Cove.
But
It's happening elsewhere.
But all of us face the same problems. And of course, it's unconscionable, it's indefensible to have people who are working, living in the conditions that you and others have highlighted.
Why are they? Why are Lisa and Lee in Colchester working full-time and living in a caravan? Why is Nicole in West London working full-time as a personal assistant and then every night going to try and find a hostel to live in? Why is that happening?
Well, each individual case will have unique circumstances. But broadly, one of the challenges that we face is just making sure that we have more homes of every kind. And one of the things that I'm dedicated to doing and have been doing while I've been here is dealing with the problems in our housing market. Dealing with everything from the building safety crisis that meant that people were trapped in homes and couldn't move, to making sure that we have the extra resource required from government to help to build more homes, but also changing the planning system so that we can unlock more development, particularly where it's needed, particularly in places like Essex, particularly in places like East London.
You've been in power for 13 years. You talk as if this is a new problem that you're now addressing. It's a problem that's existed for a long time. You've been in government for a very long time.
And during that time, we've built 2.2 million new
You
homes.
have built nowhere near enough homes, and you know you haven't.
Well, 2.2 million is a significant number. We will build a million over the course of this Parliament. Of course we should and will do more. But I think it's important when we're making these judgments to make sure that those judgments are realistically calibrated against both other countries and also against the very difficult economic circumstances that we face. One of the big problems that everyone in this country faces is inflation. That has an impact on mortgage and interest rates. It has an impact on rents. That is why we are laser focused on bringing inflation down. And the latest figures show that we are making a success of that. We are on course to halve inflation.
The latest figures show rent is increasing again and again and again. We are in a situation now, forget home ownership, people can't even afford anywhere to rent. There are parts of this country where if you're on housing benefit, there are literally no homes available on the private rental market. What are you doing for those people? What's the message to the people we've been speaking to who simply don't know what to do? They are homeless and they don't know what to do.
Well,
the
message right now is we understand the problems that you face. We want to bring inflation down and are bringing inflation down because that is the first, most important and most immediate thing that we need to do to help everyone who is facing tough economic times, but we also have a long-term plan for housing with more homes of every kind being built. We've built 2.2 million. That is a good record in comparison to the previous government, but we are certainly not patting ourselves on the back. We are accelerating steps to build more homes.
There was a report last week that your department underspent by £1.9 billion and handed that money back to the Treasury. Given the scale of the housing crisis, could you really not find any projects, any schemes to spend that money on?
Yes, and that money is being reprofiled into future years. Essentially, what that means...
Why was it not spent now?
Again, because of the environment in which we face, because of the inflationary environment at the moment, there are constraints on our ability, on anyone's ability, to build at the moment. And what we need to do is to make sure that we have a sustainable long-term plan for housing. That's what we do. And so that money is going to be spent in future years. It's not money that is... Yeah.
You have the guarantee from the Treasury.
The money, the technical term is reprofiling. It sounds like something from, a crime drama.
In layman's terms.
In layman's terms, it means that we will be spending that money in the future.
Definitely.
Yes.
Okay. And you've had that reassurance from the Treasury?
Absolutely.
Okay, good to know. Finally, let's talk about your future. Many of your colleagues, Dominic Raab, Ben Wallace, they're standing down as MPs at the next election. Are you going to be around? Are you going to stand again as an MP?
Oh, yeah.
100%?
100%, yes.
You're confident you can fight your seat and win it and stay in power?
Oh, completely. I'm very lucky to have in Surrey Heath a wonderful constituency. I'm going to fight it at the next general election. I want the Conservatives to win the next general election, and I want to carry on, if not in this role, certainly in any role that I can in order to deal with the housing crisis that we have. It is a big mission, and I am determined to see it through.
Okay, final question. And that role, if the Conservatives aren't in power, potentially be running for leader again?
No. What I want to do is to make sure that we solve Britain's housing problems. As your reporting has brought out, these are big issues. They require a long-term answer, and I'm going to be here fighting to ensure that we have more homes, that we improve the quality of everyone's home. Everyone has a right to a safe, warm, decent home, and we've got to carry on fighting in order to make sure that happens.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And that was Michael Gove being interviewed by our correspondent Daniel Hewitt. But still to come on the STV Evening News, Rishi Sunak says plan is working as viewed and petrol prices drive inflation down. But that story and more after the break. Don't go away. Welcome back. Firefighting teams across the European Union have rushed into Greece to tackle wildfires that have been raging for 3 days, while in Italy temperatures reached a roasting 46 degrees Celsius. An intense heat wave has continued to grip swaths of the northern hemisphere in what the World Meteorological Organization has labelled a summer of extremes. Scientists have put the scorching heat down to a combination of human-caused climate change and a newly formed El Nino. I'll repeat that again. Outside of Europe, health authorities have sounded alarms in the USA, North America and Asia, urging people to stay hydrated and shelter from the record-breaking heat. In Greece, temperatures have broken 40 degrees Celsius barrier, with numbers as high as 44 degrees expected in central and southern parts of the country by the end of the week. The searing heat, combined with gale force winds, have been linked to fast-moving wildfires outside the capital of Athens. Throughout Tuesday night, firefighters battled the blazes, with efforts focused on 3 areas of Mandra, Loutraki and Rhodes. In a round-the-clock battle to preserve forests, industrial facilities and vacation homes, 3 firefighting teams have been sent from Poland, Romania and Slovakia and are set to arrive in Greece on Thursday. Israel has pledged 2 firefighting aircrafts, adding to the 4 planes from Italy and France already operating outside Athens. 1,200 children were forced to flee from a seaside resort on Tuesday, while evacuation orders were put in place for at least 5 of the coastal towns. Further evacuations were ordered on Wednesday. Meanwhile, workers at Greece's ancient sites will stop work for 4 hours a day from Thursday in protest at their heatwave working conditions, their union said. The strike will include employees at the ancient Acropolis, Citadel, one of the Greece's most popular tourist attractions. In Italy, it is expected to break its hottest ever temperature record, 48.8 degrees Celsius, in the coming days, with the heat being around 10 degrees hotter than the average for this time of year. Red alerts for high temperatures have been issued for 23 of the country's 27 main cities, with hospitals reporting to be experiencing an uptick in patients due to the heat wave. The heat in Rome eased only slightly on Wednesday after a sweltering 42 to 43 degrees the day before, while highs in Sicily and Sardinia reached 46 degrees Celsius. In the rest of Europe, red alerts have been issued for Croatia, Serbia, southern Bosnia and Herzegovina, and Montenegro. In the former 3 nations, powerful storms toppled trees, tore roofs off buildings and caused power outages after days of extreme heat. Parts of Spain reached as high as 45 degrees Celsius on Wednesday, while authorities in North Macedonia extended a heat alert with predicted temperatures topping 43 degrees Celsius. In Switzerland, some 150 firefighters, police, troops and other emergency teams fought a wildfire on Tuesday that engulfed a mountainside in the southern western Wallis region, evacuating residents of 4 villages and hamlets. And around 400 firefighters, assisted with 9 water dumping aircrafts, fought a wildfire that burned for a 4th consecutive day on La Palma in Spain's Canary Islands. In the USA, Phoenix has faced a relentless streak of 19 dangerously hot days where temperatures soared to 43.3 degrees Celsius or more. In the southern city, dog parks have emptied out by the mid-morning, and evening concerts and other outdoor events have been cancelled to protect the performers and attendees. Less popular places such as Death Valley and Needles, California, and Casa Grande, Arizona, have experienced longer hot streaks, but none in location where many people live. The southern western USA faces unrelenting heat. Other parts are facing extreme rainfall, which scientists say is becoming more frequent due to global warming. This is because clouds hold more moisture as the temperature rises, resulting in more destructive storms. In Pennsylvania, rescuers are still searching for 2 children who were swept away from their family's car by flash flooding. Matty Shields, 2, and her 9-month-old brother, Conrad Shields, went missing on Saturday evening as the suburbs of Philadelphia were hit by floodwater. Their mother, 32-year-old Katie Seeley, was found dead late on Saturday, CNN reports. And finally, Rishi Sunak says plan is working as food and petrol prices drive inflation down to 7.9%. The Office for National Statistics said consumer prices index inflation was 7.9% in June, down from 8.7% in May, and its lowest rate since March 2022. But speaking on Wednesday, Rishi Sunak said the latest figures show the plan is working and should have confidence, and people should have confidence, I should say, in the rates drop. But as inflation in the UK has fallen faster than expected from May to June, it does not mean food prices are getting cheaper, as our STV News business and economics editor Joel Hill reports.
At this warehouse in northwest London, something wonderful is happening.
There is light at the end of the tunnel, for sure, we're seeing prices come back again.
Inflation is not only falling here, it has turned negative. The prices of almost all the foods on these shelves is going down. This is a wholesaler. For the moment, only restaurants are feeling the benefit, but eventually we will feel it in the supermarkets.
Chicken prices are coming down, your poultry lines, we do a lot of lamb, we do a lot of meat products, we're seeing all those coming down. We're seeing seafood come down, we're seeing cooking oil coming down. These are just some of the commodities that we sell, and we're seeing all of those. These are popular lines, these are bread and butter deals that we see our customer buying, and they're all coming down.
The headline annual rate of inflation fell from 8.7% in May to 7.9% in June. Inflation was dragged lower by petrol and diesel prices, which were 22% lower than a year ago, and by food prices. Food inflation is still painfully high, but the rate at which prices are growing is slowing. However, what's called core inflation, which excludes food and energy prices, stands at 6.9%, suggesting that prices across the economy continue to rise at a pace which will concern the Bank of England. Inflation was always going to fall in June. The question is, was this fall big enough to convince the Bank of England that it has done enough to bring price rises back under control again? The markets are betting there will be an interest rate rise still next month, and it's unlikely to be the last. We know how the bank is likely to respond to today's numbers, but the Prime Minister appears to be satisfied that the government is doing everything that it reasonably can.
I know that the number one challenge facing families up and down the country is the cost of living, and that's why I set out as my top priority at the beginning of the year to halve inflation, and I'm determined to deliver on that. Today's figures show that the plan is working. I know people are frustrated and they want this to happen sooner, but they should have confidence from today's figures.
Labour takes a different view. It says the hit to living standards that's being caused by high inflation and rising interest rates is the number one issue on the doorsteps ahead of tomorrow's by-elections, and it thinks there are levers the government could pull.
For families, what are they going to be feeling when they go down to the supermarket today, when they're making their purchases? They're still going to see prices higher than they were, not keeping up with their wage rates, for example. Things like having free breakfast clubs at all primary schools to ease some of the pressures on parents at the moment. Those are practical things that could be done right now.
Back at SK Foods, there are reasons to be hopeful. But even if inflation does continue to fall in future, it will be too late for some. 1 in 6 of the restaurants they supply here have gone out of business in the last 12 months. Joel Hills, ITV News in Warwickshire.
Thank you, Joel. I'm back with Julie at 10, but from the evening news team, bye-bye.